Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Cathy McGrath, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 17, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, as well as donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at nactv@wcgwave.ca. And today's issue of the Neepawa Banner and Press is for Friday, November 8th, 2024. And right on the front, everyone deserves a Merry Christmas. The Salvation Army Neepawa Community Services begin their Hamper program. And pictured is Community Ministries Director Amanda Nightingale, and the Salvation Army Community Services are preparing for a hectic holiday season. An array of fundraising efforts and community outreach is planned for the next several weeks leading into Christmas. The first of these endeavors is the annual Hamper program by Owen Devereaux, Neepawa Banner and Press. For most families, the return of the holiday season is all about gifts, gatherings, and festive meals. But for some within our community, this time of year is full of sadness and uncertainty. Fortunately, the Salvation Army Neepawa Community Services is doing its part to ensure those in need have a chance for a Merry Christmas. As of Friday, November 1st, the local nonprofit started accepting applications and donations to its annual Hamper program. Community Ministries Director Amanda Nightingale noted that families can apply for a hamper by either signing up online at www.link2feed.ca or by calling 431-759-7106. The deadline for accepting applications is scheduled for Friday, December 6th. While food donations are always gladly accepted, the Christmas hampers have mainly consisted of gift cards for food since 2020. Nightingale explained that doing it in this manner gives everyone the freedom to celebrate the holidays in their own way. For our Christmas hampers, we just give a gift card, and the reason for that is not everybody has a turkey and does that kind of thing, stated Nightingale. The Christmas meal is something separate and a little more special, so people can have the autonomy to go and shop the way they would like to shop, to provide choices for families to make their holiday experience a special one. As well, the creation of all the physical hampers just doesn't make sense anymore from a capacity or time standpoint. Nightingale noted that the reality is they don't have the volunteer commitment or even the space to do that. The need is greater than ever. As for the expected usage of this year's program, Nightingale said that changes they've seen in the monthly food bank use throughout 2024 does have them a bit worried. The use of food banks is at all-time high across the country, and we're no different here. We're at another all-time high, serving an average of 55 households a month. The year before, it was about 50 households, and the year before that, 45 a month. So you know that the need just keeps growing and growing and makes it more difficult for us to keep up with that demand, Nightingale shared. As for last year's number for the Christmas hampers, between ourselves and Gladstone, we were at 165. More usage is not the only problem, however, as simply the increase of cost to everything also has a huge impact. It is going to cost us more regardless, just because of inflation and cost of living. If we do exactly what we did last year, it will be another $3,500 to $4,000. The cost of 50 or 100 hampers isn't the same as 50 or 100 hampers last year. To combat these types of problems, the Salvation Army Neepawa Community Services is working on several fundraising ideas. Those include their annual Christmas Kettle campaign, which kicks off on November 23rd. As well, they are launching a new Christmas Appeal project across the region on November 15th. A separate article on this new initiative will appear in the November 15th edition of the Banner and Press. The joy of a toy for Christmas. Another major component of the annual Christmas Hamper program is the distribution of toys to local children. The toy situation is really special. Last year we started, instead of us choosing the toys, we set up a toy store with everything that's been donated. Parents come through and they choose exactly what their child wants or would like. They know their kids best, and that has really allowed us to serve and to stretch out those donations a lot more. In conclusion, Nightingale lauded many local businesses that assist in the purchase and collection of a variety of toys. Those she singled out included Hidden Hollow, Neepawa Home Hardware, our local Red Apple and Giant Tiger, as well as your dollar store with more and Harris Pharmacy. People can also donate toys themselves directly to the effort. Nightingale stressed that any supports, large or small, are always greatly appreciated. And Hamilton Street facelift makes for smooth ride. It's all smooth driving now on the section of Hamilton Street pictured above and below. Crews were making the final passes on the asphalt last week, pictured above, and have since finished the paving process. An alternative view is pictured below. The project was originally bumped to 2025, but an opening up in the paving company's scheduling and the favorable late October weather allowed for the project to move forward. And a pump barrier was damaged at Neepawa Esso. On the morning of Thursday, October 31st, there was an incident at the combination Tim Hortons 7-Eleven Esso in which a truck backed into the side barrier of a pump. The side barrier was damaged and no injuries were reported in the accident. Pictured above, the scenes shortly after the incident. And pictured right, a close-up of the damage that was sustained. One of the posts, at right, along with the side barrier for the pump, were knocked askew. Some red chips from the side barrier can be seen gathered up on the cement beside the pump proper, just to the right of the post and barrier. The RCMP are investigating multiple grandparent scams. On October 30th, Portage La Prairie RCMP received 2 reports of senior citizens within the community being defrauded of money after receiving a call from an individual claiming to be a lawyer. One resident from Portage La Prairie and one from McGrath both stated the unknown male caller was claiming to be a lawyer for their grandchild. In both cases, the suspect would provide the victim with the grandchild's name, indicating that they were in jail and needed money for bail. Both victims agreed to provide money to the suspect. The incident in Portage La Prairie saw the suspect come to the house of the senior to receive the money. The incident in McGrath had the suspect meet the senior at a location on Hampton Street. Prior to these incidents on October 29th, calls of a very similar nature were also reported to have occurred in Minnedosa and Kleefeld. In both cases, the victims gave the suspect a significant amount of money. A similar incident occurred on October 24th in East St. Paul. It is unknown at this time if all cases are directly related, and the investigation continues. These incidents are extremely concerning to the Manitoba RCMP. The criminals are using information obtained through various means, such as social media, to deceive and steal significant amounts of money from senior citizens. The fact that they are showing up at homes and even driving with the victims speaks to their ever-increasing confidence in carrying out these scams. Constable Larry Newfield of the Portage La Prairie Detachment. These criminals play on the emotions of seniors and their willingness to help a family member in need. The RCMP would like to remind the public that they should never give money to unknown individuals and to immediately report crimes of this nature to their nearest RCMP detachment. Grandparent scamp tips from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. How to protect yourself. If you receive a phone call claiming to be from a family member in an emergency situation, hang up the phone and contact them directly using a phone number you already have, not one provided by the suspected fraudster. If the caller claims to be a law enforcement official, hang up and call your local police directly using a phone number from a reputable source, not one provided by the suspected fraudster. Be suspicious of telephone calls that require you to immediately act and request money for a family member in distress. Listen to that inner voice that is screaming at you, "This doesn't sound right." It is important to know the Canadian criminal justice system does not allow for someone to be bailed out of jail with cash or cryptocurrency. Be careful what you post online. Scammers can get details that you shared on social media platforms and dating sites to target you or get names and details about your loved ones. Don't trust caller ID names and numbers. Scammers use technology to disguise the actual number they are calling from and can make it appear as a trusted phone number, also known as spoofing. If anyone has any information about any crime, please contact your local RCMP detachment. Anonymous tips can also be made through Manitoba Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS. That's 1-800-222-8477. Or by visiting www.manitobacrimestoppers.com. Victims of cybercrime or fraud can also contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre at 1-888-495-8501. And now we move on to the past with Looking Back by Casper Warehan. 125 years ago, 1899, 20 able-bodied Galicians at Dauphin have offered themselves for service in the Transvaal War. 100 years ago, 1924, Keys, Mrs. Sunter won a crystal radio set in a contest put on by a leading hotel in Chicago on Friday night last. There were over 5,000 telegrams sent from all parts of the continent, only 2 in Manitoba and 2 in Saskatchewan, and 1 in BC. The big prize went to a young lady in Iowa. Glencairn. We now have a daily mail service, which helps a lot, but a letter going to Winnipeg has to go to Dauphin and remain 24 hours before coming back on way to Winnipeg. 75 years ago, 1949, the 58th anniversary of the Neepawa Baptist Church was observed last Sunday when a former pastor of the church, the Reverend F.W. Haskins, Director of Christian Education of the Baptist Union of Western Canada, conducted services. For the second year in succession, Marjorie Adele Lawson, daughter of Mrs. J.H. Lawson and the late Mr. Lawson of Neepawa, has been awarded the Margaret McRae Scholarship at United College in Winnipeg. 50 years ago, 1974, and that is pictured above, the official opening of Inspirational Fabrics took place around this time in 74. This photo from the occasion appeared in the November 10th edition of the press for that year. Pictured are Mrs. Ann Fulford, Gary McKelman, Chamber of Commerce President, Fred Barker, Mayor, Mr. and Mrs. Alvin Hewitt, Proprietors, Harry Green, Green's Fabric Fair of Winnipeg, and Mrs. Connie Swanson. November 7th, 1974. The official opening of Inspirational Fabrics last Thursday created quite a bit of interest among the ladies of the district, who attended in large numbers. During the afternoon, a brief opening ceremony was conducted with Mayor Fred Barker cutting the ribbon. The Glenella Local of Neepawa Pool Elevators celebrated their 50th anniversary of Manitoba Pool Elevators with a banquet and social Friday, November 1st in the Glenella Centennial Hall. Approximately 120 people sat down to a turkey dinner. 20 years ago, 2004, a Brandon City Councillor wants repeat vandals to be subjected to curfew. And George L. Forster, in 1890 edition of the Neepawa Press, he was looking to provide you with some hot bargains. It's hunters, the bargains are active. We know this from experience. Now is the time for heating stoves, and we have them. I guess they wanted to keep them warm. Right in the Center by Ken Waddell. Falling short, hollow promises. It has been said that the best prediction of future actions can be seen in past actions. When it comes to Manitoba Health and the Prairie Mountain Health and Manitoba Health, it can easily be said that health care in Manitoba is fairly good, but it certainly isn't time sensitive except in cases of emergency. Obviously, traffic accidents get fairly immediate attention. Heart attacks, serious illnesses rank fairly high on the care and attention scale. But when it comes to long-term care, elective surgery, hip and knee replacements, both PMH and MH fall down the hill pretty badly. There is great optimism around the new hospitals at Portage la Prairie and Neepawa. There are problems on the horizon for both facilities. Recently, we acquired an article about the refusal by the Manitoba Health to put an MRI into Portage Hospital. Also recently, Neepawa found out that while there is a space for a CT scanner at the new hospital, they don't plan to install one. Not enough need, not enough technicians, and a lot of blah, blah, blah. Manitoba Health needs to give the head a shake. CT scans in Manitoba are behind by 35 weeks. Yes, you read that right, 35 weeks. If you want a CT scan, you can go to Alberta and buy one and get it in a week. If you go to North Dakota, it might be even sooner. Those stats scream loud and clear that Manitoba Health is verging on insanity. I got thinking about this CT scan delay, and then I was reminded that Neepawa Hospital is supposed to have 75 beds. But at a public meeting, it was stated that only 30 would be used initially. Isn't that great news? 30 beds is 5 less than what we have now. But there is a promise that 70 will be set up in the future. 30 beds is less than we have now, and Neepawa is expected to elevate its performance from a district hospital to a regional one. I personally have a long history with PMH and Manitoba Health and their promises. In 1999, I was mayor of Neepawa when a new care home was promised to replace the 120-bed Eastview Lodge. Instead, we got 100 beds, and somehow 100 beds is supposed to serve the area needs when Neepawa has grown from 3,200 people to 6,000. Makes good sense, right? I was personally promised that as soon as Eastview Lodge wheeled the last resident down the ramp, the town would be handed the keys. The plan was for EVL to be turned into public housing. Manitoba Health pitted around and let the building slide into ruin until it was too late to renovate it. Now all Neepawa has is a bare lot where we once had a building that could have had 50 suites. A building, by the way, that the local residents and taxpayers paid for in the 1960s and 70s. Broken promises on the number of beds, the shrunk version of care home, don't make me feel very good about the proposed 30 beds statement. It's all about the money and political dogma. Manitoba has the idea that we are always short of money, and God forbid that we allow any private investment or expenditure invest in the public good. There are people in both Neepawa and Portage catchment areas who would be willing to invest in a CT scanner or an MRI. People are also willing to pay for part of medical care. It happens all the time for some services in Manitoba, but not others. Without a major shake-up in healthcare, Manitoba will never catch up. We are short 345 doctors in Manitoba to reach the national average of doctors per 100,000 people. Without substantially increasing the number of graduating doctors, we will always be behind. And I say Manitoba graduates, as we should not be stealing doctors from other countries or other provinces. I've been around long enough and around politicians long enough that I am sick of half-hearted promises. Lots of good things happening in healthcare, but it's simply not enough. And not enough make no sense. We need more than empty promises. And the views expressed in this column are the writer's personal views and not to be taken as being the view of the newspaper staff. Home Buddies by Rita Friesen, Remembrance Day, 2024. And this is a guest column written by Marie Curtis from Victoria, BC. Marie is the daughter of a Dutch war bride, her father being one of the soldiers during the liberation of Holland. On Remembrance Day, we might take a few moments to appreciate our freedom from war and the peace we mostly take for granted. We might pray for peace in the Ukraine, the Gaza Strip, the Sudan, and other war-torn lands and conflicts. A few years ago, Mom and I got lost on our way to my nephew's wedding in Vancouver. We stopped in front of a house where a gentleman was raking leaves and asked him for directions. Quickly, we all realized that both he and Mum shared a Dutch accent and were close to the same age. He asked, "Do you remember during the war when we did not know in the morning if we would be alive in the evening?" referring to the Second World War in the Netherlands. Mum said yes. His voice and statement continue to echo in my mind. When the Second World War broke out, my father, Papa, was too old to be drafted into the Canadian military. One day in June 1941, near Wawanesa, Manitoba, Papa was walking behind a team of 6 horses, walking abreast, plowing 1 mile up the field, resting the team, plowing 1 mile down the field, resting the team, all in a day's work. On that particular day, as he rested with the horses, he realized that he knew that he had been doing the same job at the same time in the prior year, and would be doing the same job at the same time in the next year. Within a week, Papa took the train from Wawanesa to Winnipeg and signed up to serve with the Lord Strathcona Horses B Squadron, 2nd Armoured Regiment. Papa was transferred to Camp Borden, Ontario, then sailed from Halifax to Britain. Most of the military and mechanical training occurred in Aldershot before his regiment's transfer by ship to North Africa. There he swam in the Mediterranean Sea and was amazed at its warmth, a miracle to him. His regiment crossed over to the south end of Italy, and the soldiers and tanks worked their way north in Italy, through France, Belgium, and into the Netherlands. Papa said that often as he slept in his canvas tent at night, summer and winter, the bombs would be flying in both directions. In April 1945, the Lord Strathcona Horses soldiers began the liberation of the Netherlands for the Canadian forces entering the Dutch countryside. Our progress was impeded by cheering Dutch farmers and their families, waving and blowing kisses and offering eggs and milk. And on 4th May 1945, there was an unconditional surrender by the Nazis for the Netherlands. On 2nd of June 1945, the war ration card for The Hague, Netherlands said, "Irish stew." My Dutch grandparents could not make sense of the term. Mum spoke the best English in their household and was told, "Go across the street and ask that Canadian soldier what Irish stew means." Papa was the Canadian soldier across the street. He explained to Mum what Irish stew was. Papa always ended his telling of the story with, "And I've been in the stew ever since." More Than Just Names, Faithfully Yours by Neil Stroshine. It was the first November 11th after COVID restrictions were put in place. All community Remembrance Day services were canceled. People were encouraged to pause at 11 a.m. or at some other time during the day if 11 a.m. was not feasible, to remember those whose lives were lost on the battlefields of the world. What I remember most about that day was its weather cold and windy. I waited until noon and then dressed warmly and walked from my home to the cenotaph in front of the Neepawa County Court building. There I held a Remembrance Day service. I was the only one present. I stood silently for 2 minutes and then said a short prayer. It was all I could do at the time. Before leaving for home, I spent a few minutes walking around the memorial and reading the lists of names engraved on it. I recognized a few of them, but I wondered about some of the others. Who were they? Did they live in town or on a farm? Were they drafted or did they sign up voluntarily? Where did they serve, etc.? 3 years ago, my wife and I joined friends from another community for their service of remembrance. We listed as they read 2 lists of deceased veterans. The first list is rather short. It contains the names of those who were killed in action while fighting in a war. The second list is longer. It contains the names of those who, after returning from war, devoted their time and energy to helping build their community. This was the first time I'd seen such a gesture of respect, and I hope to see it many more times. To an outsider or casual observer, what I've just described may not seem all that significant, but those who hear those names read out each year would not agree. Yes, it is true that they served in Canada's armed forces during a time of war. It is also true that while many went overseas, others were on active duty here at home. Some were deployed as guards in prisoner of war camps. Some were assigned to various duties at military bases. Others were just about to complete their basic training when World War II ended. But before long, many of them were on their way to Korea. Those who were discharged returned home, some to families who were waiting for them, the rest eager to settle down, start families of their own, and continue the fight for peace by building strong, peace-loving communities here in Canada. They bought land, established farms, and opened businesses. They worked together to build schools, community and legion halls, churches, skating and curling rinks, and parks with baseball diamonds, soccer fields, and camping spots. Once built, they set aside additional money and donated volunteer hours to maintain what they had built. Their faithful support of others, local businesses, helped build strong local economies. You and I may never have met these pioneers, but the facilities they built are still with us. And this Monday, as we remember their services to our communities, we will gather in facilities that they built, maintained, and passed on to us. These dedicated people gave their time, talent, and treasure to serve their country and their community. They are more than just names written on a piece of paper or engraved into the face of a war memorial. They are worthy of honor and respect every day of the year, not just on Remembrance Day. Learning from Mistakes Covered by Grace, Faith and Family by Tara Kohnhofen. I recently celebrated my birthday and was celebrated with words, gifts, and much love by my family and friends. I also find myself a bit of surprise having to count backwards to my birth year to confirm what my age was. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I am aware I am not old, and most times I don't even feel my age, but sometimes I find myself in a reflective state, looking back and thinking of how the years have flown by, and even 10 years ago feels like a lifetime ago. Letting myself go down the rabbit hole of thought that says, how did I get to this point? My life is passing me by, reliving the mistakes I've made and the things I would have done differently, knowing what I know now, longing and wishing for more time to redo the things I've already done. This downward spiral sends me then reeling forward through time, imagining in my mind's eye where the future years ahead of me might hold and how quickly it will fly by. Now I recognize that these moments of panic and what-ifs don't really help me be a better parent, wife, friend, etc. Learning to look back. In fact, when I find that I've allowed myself to spiral down this pathway, I find my focus pulled away from growth and into a mistake-focused thinking and find myself afraid. But what I'm learning is that I need grace given by myself as much, if not more, than grace I extend to those around me. Grace for the mistakes I've made, and remembering to look at them as learning tool for the next time and changing. I'm learning to look back, and instead of being a part of the statistic that says for every good thing that happens, we remember 5 bad ones, train my brain to recount the good, the beautiful, and the wonderful things in my life, the times I succeeded. Doing this brings me back from the edge of deceit, from self-sabotage, and into the light of who God created me to be. A woman, a mother, a wife, a friend, a planner, a worshiper, a teacher, a student, a joy bringer, a community builder, a unique and wonderfully made child of the one true God. My encouragement for you today is to stop in this moment. Close your eyes, and if you can, see your mistakes on a film reel in your mind. Start today to course correct and see yourself in the way God created you. Beautifully and wonderfully made with unique and important giftings, a bearer of God's image, a parent, a friend, a child, a spouse, and so many more things. Out of Helen's Kitchen this week is focused on hamburger, and she has 2 interesting recipes, pot roast meatloaf and ground beef potato boats. And those can be found in the paper if you get a chance. Strathclair Theatre Chorus in concert to perform in Carberry by Gloria Mott. Sometimes it takes only one song to bring back 1,000 memories. I don't know who came up with this saying, but it is true that music triggers recollections of events in our lives. Strathclair Theatre Chorus is kicking off their 2024-2025 season with a stop at Carberry Community Memorial Hall on Sunday, November 17th at 2 p.m. The Carberry Plains Museum Board is sponsoring this event as their fall fundraiser. Their concert features music through the decades, and it will bring you songs like The Log Driver's Waltz, what boomers don't remember that National Film Board vignette, or as new as Better When I'm Dancing from the Peanuts movie, as memorable as the Beatles or as old as the Andrews Sisters, as upbeat as Splish Splash, or as majestic as the Hallelujah Chorus. Strathclair Theatre Chorus is directed by Elizabeth Gaubauer from Brandon and accompanied by Penny Menzies from Inglis. The 42 men and women who make up the ensemble this year come from Basswood, Birtle, Brandon, Cardale, Erickson, Hamiota, Minnedosa, Newdale, Oak River, Onanol, Shoal Lake, and Strathclair. They rehearse from mid-September to mid-November and then perform in various communities in southern Manitoba. This year, their schedule includes concerts in Carberry, Strathclair, Hamiota, Brandon, and Minnedosa. For the 2024-25 season, all concerts will be held in the afternoon. The Carberry Plains Museum Board will be serving desserts and beverages during the intermission. Tickets are $20 and available from board members. They are also available at East End Service and the Carberry branch of the Westman Regional Library. This afternoon event promised to be one that lifts our spirits, stirs our memories, and touches our emotions. As chorus publicist Courtney Newton says, if it brings a smile to our face or your toes are tapping, we are doing our job. And we'll move on to some sports. NACI Tigers host annual Slasher Showdown by Owen Devereaux. And pictured Neepawa's Ian Foster, number 8, celebrates scoring the game-winning goal in overtime during the Tigers game against Jean Sauvé during the Slasher Showdown last weekend. It was a busy weekend at the Yellowhead Arena as the Neepawa Area Collegiate Institute, NACI, Tigers hosted their annual Slasher Showdown. This year's tournament was held on November 1st to 2nd and featured 6 teams. The first game for Neepawa would be against a very recognizable opponent in the form of their WHSHL compatriots, the Crocus Plains Plainsmen. This tournament opener turned into a real back and forth, with the Tigers eventually winning by a score of 7-5. For the first period, Ian Foster scored the lone goal for Neepawa, while Crocus claimed one of their own. Then things would really get exciting in the second period with a barrage of goals. Kellen Hawken earned Neepawa's second goal of the game early in the period off a quick shot that handcuffed the Crocus Plain goaltender. A few minutes later, however, the Plainsmen replied back after Neepawa had a giveaway in their own zone, allowing the Plainsmen the opportunity to score. After taking a mid-period penalty, the Tigers had to hold off Crocus Plain's relentless efforts to find the back of the net. Fortunately for NACI, they not only killed off that penalty, but took advantage of an opportunity of its own. As Cohen Kilbackie was exiting the penalty box, his teammates started a fast breakout of their own zone. Immediately jumping into the play, Kilbackie received a pass and had a partial breakaway. He'd take advantage of the fortunate opportunity, scoring it to make 3-2. Before the end of the second, however, Crocus once again replied and ties the game at 3-3. Heading into the final period of regulation. In the third, Kilbackie would pick up a quick hat trick as he'd scored twice more. Crocus clawed one back off a partial breakaway of their own to make it a 5-4. Zach Plett would then revive to 2-goal lead, posting a shot past the partially screened Plainsman's goalkeeper. With 2 minutes left in the third, Crocus Plains pulled the goaltender to gain the extra attacker. That paid off, as about 20 seconds later, they'd scored their 5th of the game to trail by just 1 goal once again. Hoping that lightning would strike twice, the Plainsmen went with the extra skater again with 51 seconds. It wasn't to be, though, as Neepawa was able to pick up the empty netter to secure a 7-5 win. Neepawa's next game on November 1st was against a less familiar opponent, the Jean Sauvé Olympians. After a scoreless first period, Cohen Kilbackie scored the first of the game late in the second, knocking in a rebound off his initial wraparound attempt. For the third, Jean Sauvé kept on pressing to find the equalizer, but goaltender Austin Michalek was solid between the pipes. It wasn't until the Olympians pulled their goalie for the extra attacker that they were able to score with just 50 seconds left in regulation. This game would be decided in overtime, as Neepawa's Ian Foster put a shot away and sent the Tigers into the playoff round with a perfect 2-0 record. For the semi-final, Neepawa was paired up against the College Belleville Barracudas. While the Tigers put in a solid effort, the speed and talent of the city team just proved to be too much, as the Barracudas picked up a 5-1 victory. For the consolation final, Neepawa played the Vincent Massey Vikings and were blanked 3-0. As for the championship, Belleville defeated Jean Sauvé 3-1. Congratulations to the supporters of the NACI Tigers on an extremely well-run weekend. Okay, Neepawa farmers start THHL season with a win. Updates from around the Tiger Hills Hockey League by Owen Devereaux. A late-game scoring surge powered the Neepawa farmers to a 4-1 win over the McGregor Wild in their home opener at the Yellowhead Centre on Saturday, November 2nd. Kyle McDonald, Brett Lewandowski, and Dylan Birch all picked up goals for Neepawa in the final 8:38 of the third period. Rylan Bray scored the first of the game for the Farmers in the first period, while Drake Shepard picked up the lone goal for the visiting Wild. Goaltender Nate Braun made 37 saves for Neepawa to earn the win, while Brendan Shane was tagged with the loss for McGregor, despite putting together a strong 43-save effort. Next for Neepawa's road game in Rivers against the Jets on Friday, November 8th. The Farmers will follow that up the next night at home versus the Carberry Plainsmen. Opening face-off is set for 7:30 p.m. at the Yellowhead Centre. Minnedosa bested by Killarney. The Minnedosa Bombers were paired up against a difficult opponent for their home opener on October 26th in the form of Killarney Shamrocks. Former Neepawa Titan Rylan Goodinson scored once and added an assist to help Killarney cruise to a 4-1 win. Fellow former MJH Ellers, Ian Friesen, Neepawa 2005 to 2007, Jesse Bernard, Dauphin 2013-14, as well as Western Hockey League alumni Reed Gow, also scored for Killarney. Patrick Contreteau was the lone goal scorer for Minnedosa. The Bombers returned to the ice at Sunrise Credit Union in Minnedosa on Saturday, November 9th, when they faced the Hartney Blues. A slow start for Carberry. The Carberry Plainsmen had dropped a pair of games to begin the THHL season. First, they fell to McGregor 4-1 on October 25th. Then they were defeated by Boissevain on November 2nd by a final score of 9-1. Nate Robson scored the lone goal for Carberry against McGregor, while Joss McMillan earned one versus Boissevain. Both those games were on the road for the Plainsmen. Their home opener will be played on Saturday, November 16th against Hartney. And the Gladstone Cattle Market Report by Tyler Sawinski. Howdy, cattle producers. This is Tyler Sawinski reporting from the Gladstone Auction Mart for Tuesday, November 5th. Cattle prices are still very good. In fact, excellent if you are lucky enough to be selling. Every week, normal trends should have us thinking the market is going to correct itself. It seems to pick up steam and get slightly stronger than the previous week. We had a barn full and sold 1,668 head of cattle through the ring in Gladstone, Manitoba yesterday. The market this week was very active once again. The cattle futures seem to have started out green and stronger to start the trade during the sale, but the quality and the additional orders that we saw kept the market climbing higher throughout the sales. Most areas of trade were stronger. Some additional orders drove certain areas of the market higher. A high percentage of the feeder cattle we traded today were between 5 to 700 pounds, and seemingly those were the weights that were in high demand today. The market is very strong, and there are an abundance of orders that are just entering the market now. In fact, some are still waiting to see what kind of outcome and the effect the election will have on our livestock markets. The market this week saw a price spread shrinkage based on steers and heifers. As the weather changes and the thousands of cattle are marketed across the country, we will still need to expect market fluctuations, as there would seem to be a much bigger downside as the opposed upside of the cattle market. Cows have shown the biggest fluctuation so far and are trending softer this week due to a lower demand on certain local orders. Feeding type cows and heiferettes are still selling stronger, but definitely slid from where they would have been over the past few weeks. Yielding cows still traded quite reasonable from 150 to 160, with sales to 165 looking like softer averages. Feeding type cows are ranging between 165 to 174. Bulls traded slightly softer, ranging between 194 to 200. All classes of cattle sold well. Plainer type cattle are still being discounted. And a look at the feeder market. Some highlights from the sale: black steers weighed 480, traded for a whopping 500.5 per pound. Black steers weighed 576 and traded for 443. Cross-bred steers weighed 657 and brought 409. Red steers weighed 738 and they hit 370. Mixed steers weighed 837 and they checked out at 350. Heifers, crossbred heifers, weighed 445 and traded for 467.50. Red-hided heifers weighed 550 and brought 421. Crossbred heifers weighed 665 and made 370. Mixed heifers weighed 702 and traded for 359.5. And last but not least, a big set of 810-pound crossbred heifers that fetched 302. Hopefully that gives you an idea how the market is played out. Don't forget about our special cull sale, cows, bulls, and heiferettes only. We are hosting this Friday, November 8th. We are expecting close to 300 head and are accepting more consignments. This has been Tyler Slawinski reporting for the Gladstone Auction Mart, and thank you for being a part of our industry. And here's some of the events that happened this past week. Tsibog Eatery officially opened in Neepawa. Saturday, November 2nd, marked the official grand opening of the Tsibog Eatery and Catering in Neepawa. The ownership met that day with officials from the town of Neepawa to mark the occasion with a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Pictured from left to right, Brian Walsh, Owen De Castro, Lisa Pottinger, Neepawa Town Council member, Melanie Fuentes, and Sherry Santos. And in the middle, hospital staff have a blast. Staff at the Neepawa Health Center Memorial Hospital had a blast recently as they were dressed up for Halloween. There were plenty of smiles, laughs, balloons, and more. And Neepawa Rotary supports Newcomers Coat Room. Neepawa Rotary Club Treasurer Murray Newton recently presented a check for $500 to Liesl Milligan, president of the Neepawa Newcomers Coat Room Project. And a comedian entertains Neepawa. Winnipeg comedian Dean Jenkinson entertained at Arts Forward this past Friday. It was the first concert of the season put on by Kaleidoscope Concerts. Local singer Jessica Lucan opened for Dean. She sang 3 songs and was backed by the band Longshot. And here's a Clinton B supplement. The Neepawa Banner Press is printing this photo as a supplement to the Clinton B letters featured in the Remembrance Day special section of the November 1st edition. This photo and the details provided below were culminated from the Military Service Recognition Book, Volume 15, a project by the Manitoba and Northwestern Ontario Command of the Royal Canadian Legion. This book was dropped off at the Neepawa Banner and Press on November 4th and contains photos and details from many individuals. Thanks is given to the reader who provided it. Clinton Henry B., World War II. Clinton Henry B., pictured, was born in Oberon on November 26, 1918. Almost 23 years later, on March 14, 1941, B. enlisted in the Royal Canadian Air Force via Winnipeg. He served in both England and France during World War II, receiving his discharge in Winnipeg on October 5, 1945. For his service, B. received the Canadian Volunteer Service Medal and Clasp, France and Germany Star, Defense Medal, and the 1935-1945 Star. Following his service, he was a member of the Royal Canadian Legion, Neepawa, Branch 23, for 63 years. B. passed away on September 12, 2015. And finally, this week's Kids Scoop page. It's all about birds. Flightless birds, kiwis, cassowaries, steamer ducks, all sorts of quizzes for your kids to take part in. And that concludes the reading of the Neepawa Banner and Press for Friday, November 8th. I hope you enjoyed.